Jordan, you can hear me?
Yeah, ma'am, I can hear you.
He's sharing the screen or?
Yeah, he's sharing his screen, ma'am. He will join now, ma'am. Within 5 minutes, he will join.
Okay. Questions who is curating? I'll put it in the group. think Amit must check once, otherwise, like last time, we will have problem. Mohan?
It will look on you.
Yeah, it's showing my name.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's good.
Hi, Amit. But why Amit is shown as Jordan?
The same problem like last time. They make it like this webinar is not working. So I gave my ID immediately. So now it delayed like last time.
That is bad. Okay. Hi, Amit.
Hello, hi.
Yes, you are well dressed. I am like, so I will not come on video. Let you be on the video, but I will introduce you. Are we going live now? No, right?
No, not it, ma'am. 5 minutes more there.
Okay.
So
Can you share the screen and
last time we had an issue, right? So login issue, so I make it enable 10 minutes before.
okay. Can you share the screen as well, Amit?
Yeah, I'm doing it.
more till everyone joins.
That's what I'm checking.
A warm good evening to everyone. Thank you so much for joining in today's webinar. I am Dr. Shinu Abi, Director for Corporate Training at REVA Academy for Corporate Excellence at REVA University. I'm so glad to invite you all to this evening's webinar with Amit Modi. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic where we have been working on, and that is how to build and manage a next-gen security operations center. I would also introduce, before introducing Amit, about a minute on why we do webinars. As most of you are aware, or those who are newly joining these webinar series, at REVA Academy for Corporate Excellence, we have been doing, or we have been hosting many webinars for us awareness towards emerging technologies, especially for fast-rising executives who wants to move to these areas. And cybersecurity has been one of our priority focus areas in terms of training, research, and consulting. We boast a state-of-the-art next-gen security operations center here at the campus, where we conduct many programs for working professionals and corporates. And today, this topic, therefore, is very apt, and especially with the rising attack scenarios that every company, every organization is facing, the need for next-generation security operations center has been on the rise, and therefore, finding the right skills and also is on the rise. So this webinar, Amit is going to introduce you to quickly look at what is a next-gen SOC and what kind of processes that is required to set it up, and what are the exciting career opportunities that is available in security domain, especially managing and designing SOC. A bit on Amit Modi. Amit has been a great well-wisher for REVA Academy for Corporate Excellence, all our programs from the inception. He is a certified international coach. He considers more than a cybersecurity specialist. He is moving to build the leadership abilities in among his network. He's been a certified business coach, startup coach, and he is also a strategic sales leader. From a humble network security specialist, he is now leading large-scale cybersecurity opportunities for various companies. Currently, he is with Kyndryl and running and driving many large-scale opportunities. And Amit has been very, very kind in terms of mentoring the cybersecurity enthusiast, across the organizations. And we are so glad, Amit, that this webinar, we are looking forward to your special skill sets where you have helped many organizations to design and run successfully successful cybersecurity operations centers. So without taking much time from all the participants who are attending today's sessions and also watching our live channels. So over to you, Amit, and looking forward to an exciting session. The format is going to be that Amit will introduce the topic and talk about, say, about 45 minutes, and then we would curate all the questions which comes from all the live channels, and then we will wrap it up with a few details about our programs that which we run in cybersecurity area. And those who are joining us from various live channels, we request you to put your questions on the chat window. We will compile and curate and ask Amit to help you with the answers. So looking forward to an exciting session, Amit, and please stay back till you get your questions answered. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you everyone, and Shinu for this warm welcome and introducing me to the team. It's all about not only about learning, but it's about how we going to go and apply it to the field, right? And that makes people different. And in all of my experience, we always feel that when it comes to security, it has been always a low awareness when it comes to at least the cyber security. We all are thinking in a direction where it has been always taken as a granted, but cyber security is equally important the way we treat any of the other crisis situations like fire, like war, like any other thing. And that's where most of the organizations are getting compromised because they are not at all practicing those crisis situations. And I always give this example to so many people that the way fire situation, which is a crisis situation, needs the practice, the way rest of the other crisis situation need the practice, cybersecurity people also needs to practice a lot rather than only reading the books or reading the topic and learning from the theory base, right? And that's where I more resonate with REVA University, because their format is more about 60 to 70% of practical, and then rest they are putting emphasis on more on theory than after. So point is that that's where our topic covers up, that how are we going to build the SOC and then managing it successfully and effectively. And that's where everybody would like to go to. Now if we talk about what is that is SOC. Now first of all, every aspirant who is probably not from the security field and they wanted to get into the security area. Now what is Security Operations Center? This is nothing but we all have been seeing in the movies and in so many places. The command and control of police and all of these, it's same for cybersecurity. So we are nowhere when you being or any of us we work in cybersecurity, we are not lesser than any of the army which are fighting on the field, or not lesser than any of the police who are protecting us from any of the theft or a threat which is coming into our life, right? And cybersecurity is nothing but the same, but we are more securing the digital channels. We are responsible for securing those from breaches and threats and all of those things. And that's what I can put it in a very layman language that is all about. You can still read the technical terms, but I always like to correlate with the simple examples which can make more impact to the people, and then you can understand more easily that how are you correlating the things to the further, right? Now, each and every security operations center or any situation which we talk on, right, it has a few of the critical functions which we need to always follow. And if we do not follow that, we are going to fall back. And if when it comes to cybersecurity or security operations center, the real focus which everybody has to focus is real-time monitoring. Now, monitoring is always very important because unless and until you monitor, you will never be able to understand that what is the threat is, or how the threat is coming into your network. And that's where detection or the monitoring and identifying that whether are you under an attack or not under an attack is the key functions within security operations center. Once you identify, then there are multiple ways to manage it, multiple way to mitigate that. But the main key is monitoring. Then we further enrich those information by once we have monitored and we identified that this is something which is really important and to handle it, that's where we move towards enrich those particular incidents, all the alerts, whatever we are getting, right? Now, once we know, that's where we define the mitigation. That's where we enrich through risk management, vulnerability scanning. How are we going to investigate that particular case, and then putting all the elements as a part of the single correlation engine or single correlation intelligence based information and the rules and regulations, so that we are getting a actual output which we are looking at. And that's are the key functions of security operations center. Now, when we move towards any critical functions, right, we always have to follow. It comes with a huge amount of responsibility, and that's something which will come only and only through the specific methodology and the processes which we need to follow. And what are those things which you need to still look at from the security operations center is to identify what is your periphery, what is that is you are monitoring for, how are you going to manage those, and then you decide that how are you defending that particular situation. Now, each and every critical situation, I always wanted to refer this as a critical situation. The reason is we have always seen all of these war movies or any of these kind of action-packed movies, and all of these, we've always seen that when there is an army involved, they first secure the one specific area, then they start adjusting to that particular scenario, and then they go and attack somebody, right? Or to the threat to the country, or whichever threat which they are protecting from. So security is also like the same thing. You first need to understand where the threat coming from or where that threat can come to. Then you define and adjust your defense accordingly, and that is very, very, very key aspect into security operations center. Then, of course, when we follow the entire methodology and process and all of these part, how this security operations center looks like, or what is that is it needed. So if you look at it on the right hand side of the image, it is talking about and giving you the multiple screen with a huge amount of information coming in and all, but from where those information is coming in. So if you look at it on the left hand side image, the log sources, from where we are picking up those logs, putting it into the log collector, which we call it as log collector, where all information are being stored very, very detailed way, and then it gets into the correlation engine. Now, correlation engine is nothing but it is the intelligent based solution which helps you to identify and correlate multiple alerts. Now, again, moving to the very layman way to explain this, what do you mean by alert, and how do we do the correlation? Say, for example, I'm staying in one of the building, and on the 5th floor, when I'm on my balcony, I'm seeing there is some mishap happening down on the ground, and I called up police. Same thing has been seen by 4th floor people and the 12th floor people and the 11th floor people, and all of those people have also called up police. Now, all calls which reach to police is nothing but the alert for them. Then, how he is going to make it sure that this is particular, all alerts which are coming in is required to be considered as an incident. It is based on multiple alerts which he is correlating by major the criteria like area, which building it is coming from, and what is the location what we are talking about. So all of these are something which is they correlate and put it all these alerts as a single incident, and that's what is the correlation engine does. It gives you a holistic picture right from your router, your firewall, your multiple other devices within your network. All of them are throwing some of the alerts, which it picked up, and do the analysis on top of it and convert those alerts into the incident. And that's where, once you do that, that's where it gives you the dashboarding, reporting, and incident management, or whatever is required to do in terms of action, whether I need to send one police van or a bigger police van or a smaller police van, and that's how they process it. So that's all about how the architecture works, and that's how the entire information flows, and that's when you look at this kind of screen on the left hand side image, right? So that's all about architecture. Now, for each and everything, what it makes successful. Now, if we wanted to really win, what are the three major things which we need to consider? One is that because it is in a crisis situation, we always have to evolve. We always have to innovate the solution. There is no ready-made solution which you get when you are in the crisis situation. So innovation is something which is really important. The second thing is, you need to make sure that whatever we are defending to, it has to be scalable. Scalable, when it comes to scalability, it is nothing but that we will be able to anytime expand ourselves and restrict ourselves the way it is needed. And the last but not least, when you do innovation and the scalability, you need to make sure that once you identify those things, you put it into the automated system, so that the next time the same kind of thing happens, you are or have already automated these things, so that you are not at all reinventing the wheel again and again for the same kind of incident. Now, how do you achieve innovation? How do you achieve scalability and automation with respect to SOC, or Security Operations Center? There are three major elements who can merge into it, and you can see on your screen: people, process, and technology. Now, most of the organization today has huge amount of investment in done the investment in technology. And today, when we talk about security, each and every organization today has more than 15 to 20 different security, cyber security solutions or technology which are being implemented. Now, how do you put everything into the process? That's where you need to start focusing around. Once you have a technology and process, there has to be a people who can use this technology and through this process which you have defined, and that makes the winning combination and winning team. And that's what we teach, or we always motivate the students, whoever we are talking about, whoever we mentoring, that you need to work as a team. You need to know that you are able to leverage each of the component which you have within your organization. So you need to be resourceful at times, but you have technology, you have process, and you being a people, you need to make sure that you are able to utilize these things much better way. Now, each and everything has a journey. There is nothing which is you can achieve overnight, and so on with SOC. What objective they want to achieve out of it, whether it is just that the security incidents what they wanted to monitor, or they wanted to onboard the business as well, the applications as well, cloud as well, all of these areas in terms of what is the spread of the organization, right? Once you understand this, that's when you identify that who are the teams which requires to be onboarded, and what are those devices which needs to be onboarded from sending the logs to the Security Operations Center. That is one. Now, next step is that you still need to, once you know that what are those devices, what are those teams, it is very much important that you start picking up those logs and as an alerts, or logs and alerts, which is part of your system, which is nothing but within the organization it is available. It is just that we are just putting it everything together. Right, and once you do that, that's where your rest of the processes starts in terms of defining the correlation rules, defining the logic, defining the workflow, preparing the dashboards for the visibility for different level of people, and then last but not least, putting it into the much more automated or a known call which you need to make at any given point in time, for security operation centers, and we call it as a SOPs, which is and run books, which is standard operating procedures, which you need to put it so that you start getting into the automation. And then you move towards make sure that you have a failover options available, you are backing up rightly all the data, which is, say for example, if something goes down, you still have the data available to process it. And then finally you move towards incident management policies and procedures. Last but not least, scheduling, report, and training. Now, why training is something which is very, very important for each and everybody is that is the same logic which I already explained. This is a critical and crisis situation which we all of us are handling. And if we do not practice, if we do not look at how and envisage the different scenarios, we will never be able to protect it. So you yourself, the person who can be successful in this area is that they can think beyond hackers. They can think beyond the hackers, practice those situations, so that if at all there is something of that happens, you know that how to handle this. We always feel that we have everything in our head, but when the crisis situation comes, the data says that only 5% of the people can really respond to that particular situation, though they have all possible knowledge. So we need to be in that 5% because we are into the crisis management system. We are not handling something which is much more required a linear approach or a casual approach, right? And it's something which is impacting somebody. There is a loss which other company will make. There are so many other issues after the hacking happens or after the attack happens, right? And then as this is not something which is one time. This is, you need to keep building it, keep reassessing that particular journey, and keep improvising from there. And every time you improvise, you learn from your mistake and improvise, learn from your mistake and improvise, customize your approach, and that will make Security Operations Center much more successful. Now, how are we selecting the few of the tools which we were talking about, those three major circles: technology, process, and people? How, when we start focusing on technology, which is that technology which is giving you these kind of functionality which we are talking about, that collecting the logs, doing the correlation, doing the dashboarding, defining the mitigation actions, and all of these. The tool called SIEM, and SIEM, when we security incident and event management is the full form of SIEM. This SIEM, when we wanted to procure or we wanted to have this, these are the major criteria which everybody has to look at. One is it should have a capability to look at the real-time monitoring and alerting. It should also be able to give you the visibility from the user activities, because user is the one who is generating the data, and that's the data which we wanted to protect it. So that is very important, that we need to have a visibility to the user activity. And then how are we envisaging those critical situations? How are we envisaging that these kind of attacks can also happen? And that's where we call it as nothing but the use case. The use case are such that you are preempting something that this can happen, and you are preparing yourself for that particular situation. Threat detection and intelligence. Now, what do you mean by intelligence is that the tool should be able to consume the intelligence coming from the outside. Again, from the real world scenario, we have intelligence bureau, we have RAW, we have so many things protecting our country, right? And all of those give so much of intelligence to work for our defense system of country's defense system. And same way with the cyber security also, there is a defense coming, or the strategy comes and get builded based on the intelligence which comes on from the world, right? Then of course it has to has a forensic capability, data analysis, and automating the overall things, long-term storage of the data, because you need to start getting into the predictive analysis and envisage that this situation has happened 2 years back, that may have an implication today after 2 years. So you need to have those old data as well. And then, of course, it should be cloud ready, it should be scalable, and then it should have a capability to integrate with the devices which we are talking about, as well as the business application. And I will tell you why we need to onboard the business applications as well. And the last but not least, reporting. Now, when we look at, and we have seen that how the overall security operations center needs to be built. What is the tool which you need to, when we are selecting the tool, what is those tools needs to have those as a capability. But each and everything has a journey, and how the security operations center's journey looks like. Now, if you look at it here, there are 5 stages of security operations center, and we call it as an evolution of SOC, right? When any organization who is not at all even aware about their security posture or security infrastructure, what they have, they are at the unaware state. They add few capabilities and they move towards reactive. They establish SOC, they do so many other security controls, what they implement, and then when they move towards 3 number, which is nothing but the proactive approach. Now, what is the difference between reactive and proactive approach? The reactive is something which is something happened, and now we are responding to that situation. Now, proactive is something which is we are preempting, we are envisaging that this may happen, and we are taking all the actions beforehand so that particular attack never happened in your organization. And that makes the real difference between the successful security operations center and unsuccessful security operations center. And you guys, when you work on these kind of environment, you are the main pillar and fuel to make this reactive SOC to the proactive SOC. Right. Now, once you do get into the proactive stage, next step is anticipatory. Now, anticipatory is something which is where you add up so much of process, you structurize your overall organization process, and whatever IT security related challenges which you are facing, you are more storing all of those information. You are making sure that we are reutilizing those information what you have. And the last but not least, you move towards automation. Now, any of you ever heard about automation? What is that is really stopping anybody to get into automation? Any of you would like to attempt?
It's only chat based.
Yeah, sure. So probably they can message anyways, but I'll wait for few of the information coming in from them. However, what I would probably say is automation is the state which everybody would like to attempt and everybody would like to go to. However, the biggest problem is that over the period of time, whatever tools and technologies and processes which we are using, it is not 100% or it is not very rightly configured, because of which something else. Now, you may end up blocking something which is really legitimate to you, which is really needed for you, but you still block it because you got some information about it, right? So if you want to get into the automation, you need to make sure that your false positive percentage goes as low as possible. It should be somewhere between 10 to 15% of the false positive, and that's where we are saying that the true positive should be 85% minimum. The reason is you will otherwise start blocking or start restricting yourself to the legitimate information, legitimate access, legitimate things which are required to do by the business. And end of the day, you are stopping the business, which is not at all recommended and nobody will accept it. So point is that this is the state which is hard to achieve, but that's where we being in this industry, we need to make sure that we are working very hard on level 1, 2, 3, and 4 so that we can help our customers to reach level number 5. Now, how do you mature this security operations center? And as I said, right? So I have put it into the band-wise M1, M2, M3, M4, M5. The M1 is nothing but the start of the security operations center, wherein you the technology which is getting onboarded is SIM and VAPT. You onboard the whatever devices and network and security devices on the SOC, and then these are the output which you get out of this. Now, what is each and everything has a maturity time. Each and everything has a learning curve, and that has to happen at all stages. And this particular stage approximately takes one year for any organization to scale it up. Now, this M1, M2, M3, M4, and M5 is nothing but aligning it to this level 1, 2, 3, and 4 and 5, right? So if you are at this stage, you are still at the little more unaware state, but and reactive in nature. M2 is also little more reactive because you are not doing anything specific proactively. M3 is somewhere where you start getting into the proactiveness. That's where you start delivering so many things which are beforehand. Any kind of attack which is going to happen, you will make sure that is something which is envisaged properly. You have a defense ready for it, and you will make sure that those threats are not entering into the organization. And that starts at M3. M4, again, same technology, improvisation, process improvisation, and the delivery or the expected output improvisation. Each and every time we are making the maturity as 1 year. It still depends. This is a tentative maturity level which we are putting across. It still depends on the organization, their users, their management team. There are so many other teams who contribute towards reaching that maturity. There are organizations who has achieved maturity within 6 months also, and there are organizations who has achieved maturity not even in 2 years. So it's all up to the organization how they respond to these kind of situation. And this is nothing but the getting into the complete tools automation and process automations and all of those parts. Now, we were talking about use case. Now, use case is nothing but the envisaging that what is threat can come, or what are the problem statement within the organization. Now, how do you define that this use case is a real use case or not? So these are the steps which you need to follow. First you understand what is the objective, what is the problem statement. You categorize that as either a threat or to protect or to monitor. Based on that, you decide the stakeholders within the organization. Then you define that these are the data which you require, put it into the logic, test it, prioritize it, and put it into the correlation engine. Once you put into the correlation engine, that's where you start getting the alerts. That's where you start getting the much more processed information. And then you have to always evolve, always customize and refine your use cases as per the need, as per the learning, what we are doing on the job. When we do all these use case, right, when we were taking the data which needs to be collected rightly, and what are the elements which we consider when we develop the use case, is that one is what we wanted to achieve. Another is what are the fundamentals of use case. Fundamentals are something which is very much important, that what exactly we are going to achieve as a part of the output, right? And last, then we start getting into the log sources which needs to be onboarded. What are the log parameters which we are going to pick it up, and then we define the logic on it, which is nothing but the correlation tool. And there is a threshold that in such and such scenario only those alerts will get triggered. That is nothing but the threshold wherein we are saying that if we get 10 calls from the same area, then there is a real issues. That's the threshold which we are talking about, right? Then we define the output and the benefit of the use case, which is going to get by the organization. Now you remember on the SIM tool selection where I was talking about onboarding the business application. The business application is required to get onboarded to Security Operations Center is because the Security Operations Center needs to be a business enabler. The business enabler, the reason is that you need to make sure that your business application, your databases, your data, everything is secured. If you are not business enabler, then nobody in your organization will help you to grow. The reason is that for them, you are the showstopper, or a security operations center is a showstopper. The reason is because nobody will compromise security, or everybody would be ready to compromise security when it comes to business. Nobody wants to compromise business at all. And we need to make sure that we are joining hands together and making sure that we are enabling the business and we are not stopping the business. And that's where, when we go to the automation stage, it is very much important that we reduce the false positives so that we are not stopping any of the business related activities without taking a cautious call, without re-verifying everything. And that is more important, right? As we have looked at the technology, the next portion is the process and procedures. There are three major categories of process and procedures: operational, analytical, and the business and technology. There are so many of these are listed, very few over here. There are unlimited, and there are so many other things needs to be added as a part of within these categories. But on a larger scale, if you look at the operational, it is all the call out processes, case management processes, event handling, incident handling, onboarding the devices, shifts, the log, turnover time, how are we going to respond to the people, how are we going to do the triage of the multiple information. And then the second stage is the analytical stage, where we are going to process that data with the cautious information, with the enriched information, and then we put the rest of the other processes, which is access management, architecture, integrating the compliance which are required, process improvisation, and the use cases which we were talking about. Now, all of these, whatever we are talking about, we were talking about the SIEM, which is nothing but doing the log collection and then processing it. Now, next gen security is something which is beyond SIEM, beyond log collection or log management. If you look at in this particular chart, the log management which you are seeing at the IT infrastructure security is just a very small piece. This is what is nothing but the SIEM today. So when we envisage, visualize the next gen security operations center, you need to make sure that you are onboarding endpoints, you are onboarding rest of your other tools, IT infrastructure, your application, your database, your any tools which are part of your system today, any application which is part of your system today, and all of these needs to be then consulted and done the GRC, which is governance, risk, and compliance, and get into the more process oriented. So this is where your tools, technologies are getting aligned to the processes, and that's when you make the next gen security center. What we wanted to achieve is cyber immune framework. Now, cyber immune framework, what do you mean by that? If you look at it, these outer circle are something which is 8 elements of any organization wherever you go and wherever you work for. There are network, there are advanced threats happening, there is identity and access related issues, there are cloud, they have data and app, they have mobile, they have endpoints, they have some of the other types of threat intelligence. All of these outer areas are available within organization. But are we connecting everybody together? The answer is no. And that's where the security operations center is something which is at the first layer, integrate each other at the first hand. And then the next stage of the making the next gen security operations center is to bring in the analytical capabilities, which is security analytics, which we talk about. Now, what do you mean by this is that we are trying to utilize all the information which have been generated by all these outer circles, reutilizing, making sure that we have enough of data to take any decision which we wanted to take. And by virtue of all of these, what we wanted to create is the secured ecosystem with cyber immune framework. And that's what is we wanted to achieve as an end state. Everybody who is working in or wanted to work in cyber security, they need to have this kind of vision so that they are working for something larger rather than just working for what they are working on precisely, right? And that's where you make this word more secure from a cyber security standpoint. Now, when you do all of these, the technically or everything is right, wrong, whatever we discussed, right? And maybe when you join somewhere, somebody will say that this is not the right process. They may have their own process to follow X, Y, Z. But as any organization, when you join in Security Operations Center, what are the career progression which you may have? The day one, you will start with SOC monitoring. The next stage is to get into the management role, which is a SOC management, where you have a larger responsibility to monitor, not to monitor, but manage those devices, manage those incidents. Get into the incident management as the third stage of your career. Then getting into the threat hunting kind of, which is very, very, very advanced way of doing and identifying any threat which are available within your organization or coming out of the organization. Then you're getting into the engineering. Engineering is nothing but making sure that anything and everything which talks about innovation, those innovation happens here. But for doing the innovation in cybersecurity or in Security Operations Center, you need to make sure that you have the knowledge of rest of the other stuff, and that's where you get into the innovation. Last but not least, the forensic is the one which we always wanted to do. Somebody came and asked you that my Twitter handle got hacked. The forensic capability, the day you have a forensic capability, you have started solving so many problems within your ecosystem, not only in your organization but outside of your organization as well. So that's where is something which is really important. Now, as we all know that today there is some war which is happening some part of the world, and if you look at it, before the real fire happened on the border, the first thing which has happened is that the both of the side, some or the other government websites have been hacked first. Before even the first fire happened, the cyber security incident has already happened. And that is the quantum which we all are going to work for. And that is what is why it is more important than any normal situation. With that, I would like to thank you everybody for the sparing some time with me and listening me very listening is one of the really great skills which everybody has to develop, and I really appreciate and wishing you a luck that you guys onboard on cybersecurity requirement and the courses, which will make you entering into something which is much more critical in nature, much more fulfilled in nature, and it gives you a different satisfaction altogether. Now, just before I signing off, the last one is that today, at this point in time in the world, there are more than 2 million plus cyber security experts are needed in the world. And that number is increasing day by day. And you are entering into the right era. So take your call cautiously with the all possible information which we are supplying here, and looking you guys at the other side of the table.
Thank you so much, Amit. We have a few questions, so I would read out maybe 2 of it. Sure. First question is that in today's world, the big data, that means live streaming, large volume of data is attacking or getting into SOC. and how SOC manages such huge flux of data?
Right. So very, very right questions, and I would like to go back to the another one slide which I was talking about. Now, big data. When we were talking about big data, that is nothing but the security analytics which we were talking about. So all of these information coming from network, your identity, your cloud, data, app, any of these areas, everything is getting dumped at this, and which we call it as a data lake or data huge amount of data which is getting gathered. Now, there are tools like security analytics tools which works on this, like elk and many others, and they are the one who is going to utilize these data which are available, and more the data, more predictive analysis you can do on top of it. So information are critical, information are important, and it says something. There needs to be a tool which requires to read those non-written statements within the information which we are having within the data lake, and that's where we are moving towards predictability, and that's how the data lake and data huge amount of chunk of data is getting utilized in a much better way. I hope I have answered your query.
Sure, Amit. Another question which has come up is that what are the best practices from your experience which can put into practice while managing a SOC?
Right. So as I was saying, right. So the building journey and managing journey, which we have said, one is that is when you build, you need to make sure that you are much more flexible and adaptive in terms of taking anything and everything on security operations center. First of all, the second thing is that once you take those information and started taking those logs to the security operations center, it is equally important for you then after to make a justice to that. And how do you make a justice to that is to always relook at those, re-evolve, refine, and continuously customize that particular approach. So any use case, just for an example, any use case which you create, right? If you create and forget it, it is not going to give you any output. There are so many organizations who has more than 50 to 100 use cases or more than 100 use cases which they have developed, but they have developed on the day one and they have not even looked at it that whether it is really working for them or not. So refining and customizing is the key to make any security operations center a effective security operations center.
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant answer even for any of the processes which we put in practice in an organization. Yeah, continuously monitoring and improving upon. I think with if more questions are there, Amit has shared his LinkedIn profile as well as email ID in the last slide. So please do connect with Amit. And if still there are questions, we will take one or two. But then, because of the lack of time, I would want to thank Amit from all of us about spending this stitching together all the technology options that is available, putting together the right processes, and the best part is that you could even connect to the GRC team coming together to develop a very matured SOC practices so that your organization becomes cyber resilient. That was wonderful, Amit, and thank you so much again. But before we actually close this section, I would want to quickly introduce what do we do here. As Amit mentioned, our programs are very practical. We train participants on these life skills as well as emerging technology skills. So if Amit, because I'm not sharing the screen, so if you just move here. Yeah, so it's a beautiful campus here we have. It is towards North Bangalore. Those who have not seen, please do visit us. This is one of the top-ranked Swachh Bharat campus in the country. And we have a sprawling set of 15,000 plus students, 2,000 plus faculty and staff. Now the campus is back in action. So if you are coming to the campus, you will see all our students are back in the campus post-corona. a series of programs that which we run, but REVA Academy for Corporate Excellence is focusing on working professionals and corporate training programs. Here we have almost 50 plus industry mentors in people like Amit, who has been specializing in cybersecurity, as our mentors and trainers, and through us, almost 1,000 plus mid and senior executives have been positively impacted. We actually boast one of the best ROI programs in the country for working professional programs. And we have a series of programs, both short-term and long-term. And you must look at our YouTube channel. It is called REVA. Please do check for almost 4,000 plus YouTube videos, which we share freely for knowledge enhancements. And since it's a university, we also focus on not just teaching, as we mentioned, on consulting as well as research areas. Some of our partners, if you see, it's a great ecosystem where you draw the strength from the industry and the academic research from the university. So it's a great mix to be part of, and I'm sure once you get attached to RACE programs, your perspectives and your next 10-15 years of your career is going to positively impact. So we have, especially in cybersecurity programs, we have EC councils and Azure, AWS, and various other companies who are partnering with us. And this is a quick look at our program portfolios. All our programs are highly ranked, so you can check some of the industry ranking for seeing some of our top ranked programs. Analytics, AI, cybersecurity, cloud architecture, and software product development, some of our major areas. We also have all our programs are AICTE and UGC approved. That means it's peace of mind for rest of your life. If you're looking for global mobility or getting on to say a doctoral program later, these programs would be the right fit. I think a few more slides next. I think just yeah. Okay, I will just take a quick look at the cybersecurity. We offer an MTech MSc in cybersecurity in association with Azure Cloud as well as Terralogic and EC Council. If you could just quickly move the slide. Yeah, this is the SOC Security Operations Center we had mentioned. This is the live SOC at the campus. It's a 12-seater for monitored systems where we have put almost all the technologies what Amit has mentioned. And this is completely now managed by the students community so that they can experiment, create different sandboxing environment and work on various threat vectors that which Amit was talking about. So we have the latest SIM as well as the SOAR, because we also have an analytics practice here. We also experiment on developing the right AI-driven use cases, which makes a SOC into a SOAR. And cyber range is one of our key focus areas. So you can literally play the game of the hackers and the defense systems by teaming up with the right set of scenarios. So
this gives this gives you guys the platform to practice that crisis situation which we were talking about. So if you look at it here, red team, blue team, white team, and green team. Red team is nothing but you act as a hacker, and blue team is nothing but you act as a defender. So you are practicing the situation, you are creating the mindset of defender, you are creating the mindset of hacker, so that you can think like a hacker, being side of the defensive side. So that's what is you need to practice it, so that you think beyond or one step ahead of any hacker which wanted to get into any of the organization.
Absolutely, Amit. This is one of our key USP, because very few, hardly any universities are able to give this kind of real, practical, hyper-simulated environment for participants to practice. Yeah. And this is the program structure I would quickly take you through. So trimester 1, we focus on all the basics like network, infra security, cloud security, and slowly build on incident management, starting with creating the threat landscape and moving towards doing pen testing and then managing SOC and then get into threat intel to forensics and also adding security analytics layer. So it is a completely focused program for cybersecurity professionals. At the end of it, you would emerge as one of the key players, or when you are applying for the jobs, you would be the right fit among so many who would have done a few certifications here and there. And we also focus on a lot of projects here, which are live and industry based ones. And among our partners, so we have now tied up with the EC Council, Azure, AWS. So you will also get all these access to their iLabs as well as Azure's cloud security programs, some of the certifications which are coming in, all that is part of the program. Yeah, these are some of the certifications. So you will also get CEH or CHFI, CPENT, or a CSA certification along with that, plus cyber ranks, almost 6+ global certifications you would get as part of this program. Yeah, this is another program. I think with this we will kind of conclude. So we are also launched cloud architecture and security. It is definitely connected, as Amit was mentioning, that we should also look at how do we move a physical SOC into a cloud environment. Also build applications which are secured and scalable in cloud. Very, very important skill sets which companies are now looking forward. So please do connect with us if you are interested in any of our program. And with this, I think, yeah, so there are a couple of slides that which we would skip because of lack of time. With that, I think we would conclude. All our numbers are there. If you are interested, or if you are referring some of your participants, some of your friends and colleagues, do connect with us. And if, as we mentioned, connect with Amit as well through LinkedIn, and do visit us to know more. And with that, let us conclude this session. Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you everyone for joining. We look forward to meeting you very soon. Be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, you cut the call, right?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay.
There are 10 attendees still showing right now.